Chibai, chibai, chibai. Good morning, good day. This morning I'm so privileged to have this opportunity to interact with the audience, mostly of the non-Mizo audience within and outside Mizoram. We are going to try to understand the historical, technical and legal background of the MIZORAM-ASSAM border dispute. Before I go into the subject, let me have a small introduction of myself. That I am Hriata Chhangte. Basically, I have been a mining engineer by profession. I worked for 3 years in Mizoram, 6 years in ONGC Ahmedabad, then another 21 years under the government of India, Ministry of Mines, Indian Bureau of Mines, at various places in various capacities of control of mines. In fact, when I took a voluntary retirement from Kolkata, I was in charge of Eastern Zone of IBM, which consists of 8 northeastern states and 4 states of eastern India. Then in the process, I had taken a voluntary retirement mainly because to come back to my home state and to try to understand and try to put myself in such positions where I can be of help for the people of Mizoram and for the glory of God. Then, in fact, since I've done my law graduation, I'm a practicing lawyer now, but I am more comfortable in calling myself a social activist who poke his noses everywhere as and when I feel there is a calling for me. So I treat myself as a very progressive, responsible Indian citizen. I'm Mizo Christian as such, and today I'm going to speak these issues, the boundary issue between Mizoram and Assam in the light of actual technical problem, and also I will try to be unbiased, so much neutral to the extent possible, as a citizen of India, responsible citizen of India, not as a Mizo per se. And also I am trying to impress upon whoever is concerned and whoever is watching my video that we should be able to, the solution of Assam-Mizoram border is coming very easy. The only thing is that there must be a determination on the part of the people in power to solve this problem. After having understood the fact that I have spent my good years, productive years in the mainland for the last almost 30 years or so, and I often call myself as one of the most Indianized Mizos. And I have the opportunity to understand the complexities of Indian culture, the society and the federalism structure of our constitution. India being a great country, so we are a part of Indian Union, 23rd state of Indian Union. And we have to understand at this point of time that today Mizos are called scheduled tribes, or in a common parlance, tribals. And as a scheduled tribe community under the Constitution of India, we have to understand, and I would like others also to understand, that we are very much favored, protected, and being, like a reserved people. So before the advent of British people in India, these hill states, these hill areas, which were later on called as the Lusai Hills, were occupied by our forefathers. But the organization as such was not very complete, or say not very well defined. Each villages were having their own chiefs, and having understood each other, they were loosely called the Lusai tribes, or say the areas they were settled has been called the Lusai Hills. And the Lusai Hills, we must understand that the Lusai Hills, as the British address us, extend towards even the international border of Myanmar, Bangladesh, India, and as such. So when the British had come in contact with the Mizo ferocious tribes, they were of the opinion that these people are not the same as the ones they have seen in the mainland India. So they said they were different, their attitudes are different, and their living standards were low, ferocious, and very, warlike, warring tribes. So they have decided that way back in 1875, through the Bengal Eastern Frontier Regulation Act, they have decided to make a barrier for the Mizo tribes not to be able to come to the plain side, or the plain people not to be able to come to Mizoram side easily without specific permissions, which they call it the Inner Line Reserve Forest. So in 1875, through the Bengal Eastern Regulation Act, Inner Line Forest Reserve was demarcated. At the same time, we also were given what you call Inner Line Permit, Inner Line Regulation, in which the non-Mizos, the non-tribals were not allowed to come, even possess land. They need a prior permission from the authority. Such impositions, such restrictions were already in place way back in 1875 by means of inner line permit, and also a big barrier of a big thick forest which were called Inner Line Reserve Forest. But then way back in 1870s or early 80s, our forefathers, the warring what we call chiefs, along with their elders, the fighters, often come down to the plain side of Assam, like Kachar, and in the process they were also not very comfortable with the aggressive British exploiters who were already into tea garden in Kachar plains. So there was a time when one chief from Sailam, Bengkhoya, the chief, along with his team, were on a hunting spree for elephants, and they found out that there was an Englishman who was doing some activities in their territory, Lusai territory. So they did not like it. So they killed the gentleman. They took his young daughter. They call it Zoluti, or later on Mary Winchester. So in the process, the British also had realized that they had to do something with these people, because these people were not similar to other people they have seen in Kachar Plains. So they started, practically annexation of Mizo Hills in 1890. So that is how the Mizos were, in contact with the British people. And the starting was not very good, as you can see. And in the process, the British people, being expansionists themselves, and then they had come to this part of India. They have explored the world in the process, even to the extreme corner of this side. Their main interest was their business. Their main interest was that Mizo tribe should not disturb them, and they should not disturb even Mizo tribes also. So we were most of the time put in an excluded areas, which was practically not under the British India. So as time went by, when the independent movement was at its peak, the British India realized that these people has to be taken care of. So once again, instead of having a proper consultation with the people of Mizos at that time, they had introduced various regulations, various acts and all. So this 1875 Bengal Eastern Frontier Act was modified again and again, and in the process, while trying to satisfy their economic needs and the expansionist demands, they keep on changing the boundary even. So here I would like to mention in these documents which we have found out recently, there are boundaries, eastern boundaries. The boundary descriptions of the Inner Line Reserve Forest was very clear. These are the original papers, made during the British period. So in the process, the Inner Line Reserve Forest, which we call it now, measuring an area of 509 square miles, have been accepted by the British India as a territory of the Lusai Hills. So in the process, if you happen to see these records, that way back in 1905 to 1910, that the Inner Line Reserve Forest was looked after by the Kachar Forest people, and they have collected revenues, from villages, and other dwellers in this area. And in fact, if you happen to see this original paper, we have found that they have even collected to the tune of 1,77,647 and 1 anna, and have paid 70% of that to Mizo district superintendent. So that things keep going on, and at the same time, we also have to bear in mind here that way back in 3rd October, I'll tell you, 3rd October 1953, there was a letter from the Secretary to Government of Assam Tribal Areas Department, namely Sri R.V. Subramaniam IS. He has written to the Deputy Commissioner Lusai Hills that I am directed to say that the house tax collected from the villagers settled in the forest reserve in question should be credited to the district council fund. So we had come to know way back since 1905 towards 1953 until 1972. There was an understanding between Assam and Mizoram that 509 square miles of inner line reserve forest has been the territory of the Mizo District Council. But when Mizoram was carved out of Assam, was about to be carved out of Assam by virtue of what we call Northeast Areas Reorganization Act 1971, the Assam government was careful. So they have somehow stopped payment of that what we call royalty from this inner line reserve forest to Mizoram also. And in the process of Mizoram being carved out, Union territory of Mizoram being carved out, they had insisted, or say they had somehow made serious attempts through the Survey of India to survey the areas, the whole of Assam, including the boundary areas between Mizoram and Assam also. That they have surveyed, as we can see from here in my map, that they have surveyed right from 1974 till 75, 76, 81. So Survey of India has made finally the map of Mizoram in this system, in this way, in 47 toposites. Out of 47 toposites, these 6 toposites, 83D8, 83D12, 15, 83D11, 83D7, 83D14, is covering the areas bordering between Assam and Mizoram. This demarcation, this survey was carried out by Survey of India with the insistence of Assam government. And it so happened, well, understandably, so happened that the newly born Union Territory of Mizoram was not consulted. Proper ground verifications were not done. And in the process, they have come up with presently the proposed, say, the draft boundary between Assam and Mizoram. This is the new map, they have called it. So these are the toposites I have mentioned. So if you happen to see this map drawn in the 70s, when Mizoram was carved out, Mizoram was carved out from Assam, you will find that this, say, Paisan, which is a Mizo village, say Sayapuivi, another Mizo village, they were put inside Assam. Mizos were not consulted. Government of Mizoram, Union Territory was not consulted. And the same has been reflected in the footnotes of these toposites in the Survey of India maps also, which clearly shows that after this, there has not been any sincere attempt to make a demarcation of a boundary, clear demarcation boundary between Mizoram and Assam. So the position of today is that we are having an imaginary line drawn by Survey of India according to the wishes, according to the demands and wishes of the government of Assam, without consulting the Mizoram government. So under these circumstances, it is neither practical, nor desirable, nor justifiable for anybody, any sensible person, to impose such boundary to the government of Mizoram. So it is clear from this, technically, legally, that as on today, 31st October 2020, we are not having any practically accepted boundary between Assam and Mizoram. And in the process, it is also very clear that we don't have any official boundary, not to talk about the constitutional boundary. Now, the problem, where is the problem coming from? The problem comes from the fact that Assam government is insisting that they have no boundaries with Mizoram, because the maps were drawn as per their wishes, as per their own desires, as per their own instructions. And they have been trying to impose that boundary to government of Mizoram, the people of Mizoram. So, well, we have come to understand as Mizos that we don't have an official boundary. There is no question of what we call entering in others' territory. So the question of intuition of Assam territory by Mizo people, the NGOs or the government or even the police forces does not arise. Okay? So we have to be very clear today that Mizoram and Assam is not having a boundary like this. I mean, an acceptable boundary, official boundary. Now, if you go back to the historical fact, you will find that it was the mistake, or say the intentional mistake of the British exploiters, the imperialist British, that Mizos were first of all divided in 3 countries now: Myanmar, India and Bangladesh. That was the first mistake. The second mistake here is that the British have not come to Mizoram to do good things from Mizoram or to develop Mizoram or Assam or say India. Their main driving force was that they wanted to make money out of Indian natural riches. So in the process, when they were into tea garden in Kachar, and that was being felt in Tuk, attacked by the Mizo chiefs, so they started playing, safe method. So they were making this inner line reserve forest, and they were making what you call inner line permit. So we have to understand today, the main problem comes from the British. The British were not kind enough, not sensible enough to demarcate who are these people. They should be together. So if the British had taken more seriously of the issues, the tribals and the non-tribals, the intermixing of the different communities, this problem would not have come out. Now, added to the wound made by the British, the Assam government had added salt to the wound already made by the British, that this map, as we have said, that the present map has been drawn stealthily without the knowledge and consultation of Mizoram. So I don't think any sensible person, any sensible Mizo, or even to the extent of government of India, or say even Assam government themselves, have to realize that they were in fact trying to snatch away stealthily the areas of their interest from Mizoram to Assam. That is where the problem of boundary disputes come. Now, it is high time. I appeal to all concerned, even to the government of India, government of Assam, and Mizoram in particular, that they should sit together and try to do ground verifications, justify the land, verify the imaginary lines drawn by the Survey of India in 1970s till early 1980s, and settle once for all the interstate boundary between Assam and Mizoram. Now, talking about the 509 square miles of inner line reserve forest, it has been all clear, accepted even by Assam right from the beginning till 1972. Till 1972, that 509 square miles inner land reserve belongs to Mizoram. Now, I don't understand. It is not easy to understand, or rather, it is unethical on the part of Assam to somehow try to snatch away a big chunk of land from us. Assam has to explain why these royalties were not given to Mizoram anymore once it became an Union territory. I believe Assam was taking okay. Assam was feeling comfortable as long as we were a district under Assam state. But the moment we were emerging out of Assam in 1972, they did their own calculations without bothering Mizo people. So I don't think any people, including Assamese or Assam, should have the tenacity to try to snatch away the land that rightfully belonged to Mizos right from the beginning. So I also appeal in the process, my video, that government of India has been very kind, and I would like to congratulate, in fact, the Survey of India who had surveyed those areas during those times, have left in their footnotes that ground verifications were not carried out, Mizoram government was not consulted. And now it's a time, let's sit together and let's verify on the ground, and let's solve the boundary problem once and for all. So, but then if we go into deeper of the problem once again, why there is so much problem in this area? My understanding of the fact is that the main people who are disturbing us are not the real Assamese. They are the people who have been migrating from Bangladesh to India, to Hailakandi, to Karimganj, to Kachar. Okay? They are the one that government of India, the BJP government in the central, had introduced CAA, Citizenship Amendment, in order to stop the infiltration of these people. Actually, it is these people who have infiltrated the neighboring districts of Assam, and in the process have tried to enter Mizoram, because they found that Mizos are peace-loving people. They will not react, so we can keep, entering their land. And let me remind you at this point of time, in 1986, when Mizo Peace Accord was signed, and there was no more problem after that. And we talk about peace bonus and whatnot, and it is considered to be the most successful peace accord signed by government of India with rebel groups within India. You know why? It is because Mizos are not coward. It's only because of the fact that Mizos are peace-loving people. We are very romantic people. We want to live life, enjoy life. But that doesn't give any right to a neighboring state, or any people for that matter, to come and snatch away our land. And after having realized this time around, I am of the understanding that the first incident which took place near Mamit district, Tinghmun district, that the Karimganj DC himself was the one who had come all the way, burned down, slashed down the crops that belonged to the Mizo villages. And I don't understand how a DC, an IS officer, which is supposed to be a very, high-level service, high-level officer, had the courage or the drive, the intention to involve himself in such atrocities. And I don't think this is fair on his part also. So I think we have to take up this issue, and maybe as a social activist and as a practicing lawyer also, I think we'll have to do something about this in respect of the DC who had come all the way. Every footage, there are TV footages that confirm his presence, and he was acting as if he was a gang leader. Okay, DC Karimganj was doing something very wrong. At the same time, few days back, when additional DGP, and he had, tried to scare away Mizo police force, that you have entered 3 kilometers inside Assam, and you have to go back. If you don't go back within 24 hours, I'll bring more forces, and you'll face your consequences. And in response to which, I'm very sorry that there was a village announcement in Vairengte that we have to prepare ourselves. People are pulled down, from the village. People walk down to Saihapui and then to Vairengte border, constructed a trench as if we are preparing for a war. It reminds me of a war between India and Pakistan. So we are not, as Kachar and Mizoram, we are not India and Pakistan. We are a part of Indian Union territory. So this part has to be looked after by the government of India, that Mizos being the tribal people of India under the Constitution of India, and the one who are disturbing us happen to be the infiltrators from Bangladesh. I don't think any sensible government in Delhi should ignore these problems that is coming on. And in fact, the BJP government in the Delhi, Modi ji and his company, should be able to look this matter from different angles and try to do something and solve the boundary problem once and for all. So I appeal to everyone that as Mizos, we're not trying to snatch away land belong to Assam. We're just reaffirming ourselves that, okay, this was a land belong to us. So without our consent, you cannot just take away even an inch of land from us. The villagers are prepared. Once we find them prepared to die for the land, what we can do? So the government of India, Assam, has to think twice before, making such unwanted moves, to harass, to panic the local people of Mizoram. And I think it is high time that two states government of Assam and Mizoram should sit together under the supervision of government of India, because it is a matter of internal, adjustment. So it may so happen that once and for all we'll find, okay, 509 inner forest area might have, occupied by lots of people in Hailakandi or Karimganj. Might be difficult to, bring or make them become a domicile of Mizoram. At the same time, we have our own people, in the Assam neighboring areas. We can have an exchange of people, we can have exchange of areas, like the one they had in between Assam and Nagaland. Dimapur was a land belonging to Dimasas. So by understanding, Dimasas have given Dimapur to Nagaland, and Nagaland have given some part of their land to Assam in the form of NC Hills or Karbi Anglong. So there could be some adjustment. Such adjustment have been taking place in different parts of India under the constitution, and peacefully with proper understanding. Say for example the case of Purulia and Dhanbad. Purulia was in Bihar, Dhanbad was in West Bengal. But then based on the people alienations, people choice, their language and the community. So Purulia from Bihar was given to West Bengal. Dhanbad in West Bengal was given to Bihar. So such kind of arrangement can always take place. Now it is my fervent appeal to the people of Mizoram to have some restraint, to see that competent authorities will do something meaningful, pragmatic, so that this boundary problem will be solved once and for all. And I appeal to all my non-Mizo people in Assam and in other parts of India to think in a practical way that this problem is not really a problem, but it is a problem of Assam trying to snatch away some land. And at the same time, I'm pained as a citizen of India, responsible citizen of India, as a tribal man, that we have been attacked by people who have been illegally immigrated to India and, disturbing us. I think it's really high time for government of India to look into the plight of our people here. And I think by God's grace, everything will be solved very soon. Only thing we need to have is that we need to have a sincere attempt and a desire to finally solve this problem. It's very easy. It's not something which is not possible to solve. And with this, I would like to conclude. And in fact, I have been in Guwahati for almost 10 years, and I used to tell to my Assamese friends that anybody born before 1972, any Mizos born before 1972 were born Assamese, because there was no Mizoram at that time. So Mizoram had been a baby of Assam. So the mother should not ill-treat his son or his daughter Jobihe. And I think we can have an amicable solution. With this, we can have a healthy atmosphere of brotherhood and helping each other. And the future, until and unless if we don't live in peace, life cannot be enjoyable. With all this, I pray to God and also to the concerned authorities of the Assam and Mizoram and the government of India to kindly look into the matter quite seriously and solve the problem once and for all. Thank you so much.